Razor Tojo, Japan's Adolf Hitler. So let's get right to it. Contrary to popular myth, Japan's version of Adolf Hitler was not the Emperor Hirohito, but rather its infamous war minister Hideki Tojo. But who was this man that so few outside of Japan even know of? The son of a samurai general, Tojo followed in his father's footsteps, attending the Japanese military and ultimately joining the army. Over the next 20 years, he received steady promotions, eventually reaching the rank of lieutenant general. A stern, humorless man, he left the raising of his 3 children, which he considered woman's work and beneath him, to his distant wife. In 1935, Tojo was promoted to the head of the Army's military police. Nicknamed Kamisori, or Razor, he was both respected and feared for his efficiency and ruthlessness. By 1937, he was chief of staff of the Kwantung Army in Hubei province in China. During the Chinese-Japanese War, he began consuming Manchuria's vast natural resources to power and feed Japan's hungry military machine. His numerous successes made him famous. Returning to Japan in 1938, he became Vice Minister of War, adopting an aggressive strategy of harsh preemptive strikes against Chinese targets, allowing Japan to capture both Shanghai and Beijing. By 1940, he was appointed Minister of War by then Prime Minister Fumimaro Kono. When Hitler's war erupted in Europe, Tojo pushed the Prime Minister for an alliance with the Nazis. He had briefly served as military attaché to Germany in the 1920s. Tojo admired Hitler's accomplishments and the Third Reich's war state. Japan's continual imperial expansion in Indochina eventually led to economic sanctions by the Western European powers. This included a freezing of all Japanese assets in the United States. Then in the summer of 1941, President Franklin D. Roosevelt enacted a fateful oil embargo against the Japanese Empire. By September, Tojo and his naval commanders began openly discussing war with the United States. Staunchly against war at any cost, Prime Minister Kono resigned in October 1941. Emperor Hirohito summoned Tojo to the Imperial Palace in Tokyo and named him Japan's 40th Prime Minister. He was now the most powerful man in the empire. Tojo conducted a careful evaluation of a future war. He noted, quote, "For the past 6 months, our foreign minister has made painstaking efforts to fix relations with the United States. Although I respect his effort, the heart of the matter is their mandate for us to withdraw from Indochina. If we yield to these American demands, it will destroy all the fruits of our Chinese expansion." End quote. In 1941, the foreign ministry reported the failure of any peaceful solution with the West. That was all Razor was waiting for, and all he needed. Tojo presented his war plans to Emperor Hirohito, who formally approved war against the United States and England. As we know, the Pacific half of World War II began on Sunday, December 7, 1941, when Japanese aircraft bombed the American naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Japan's early victories in the war greatly strengthened Tojo's power and prestige and his undying faith in ultimate victory. Over the course of the war, he methodically placed himself in direct charge of the army, foreign affairs, commerce, and even education. As acting education minister, he began an aggressive indoctrination of the Japanese people with his Toko, a Japanese-style Gestapo secret police. Throughout the course of the 4-year war in the Pacific, the ruthless brutality of Tojo's strategy became all too apparent. Numerous atrocities were committed at Allied POW camps, including torture, starvation, beheadings, burnings, bayonet executions, and wholesale massacres. In 1944, he authorized the kamikaze suicidal attacks by Japanese pilots on U.S. ships. He assumed the role of commander-in-chief, effectively gaining despotic powers. Like Hitler, he dared to open a second front in the West by invading British-controlled India. Yet despite all his power and many titles, Tojo was never able to establish a dictatorship on a par with Hitler or Stalin. By 1944, when Japan's defeats by the Allies began to mount and its bomb industries began to crumble, Tojo sought to gather total control of Japan. But he still, however, served at the behest of the Emperor Hirohito. Without the support of his party and the industrial complex, he was unable to maintain control. After the islands of Saipan and the Philippines fell into American forces in July of 1944, he was forced by Emperor Hirohito to come back to the palace and submit his resignation. Faced with the costly invasion of Japan, President Harry Truman ordered the dropping of 2 atomic bombs on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. After the Japanese surrender, Tojo knew what his ultimate fate would be at the hands of the Allies. He tried to commit suicide by shooting himself in the chest. The bullet missed his heart, however, and he survived the attempt. He was arrested by the Allies while recovering and sent to military prison. "I regret," he was quoted as saying, "that it is taking me so long to die." Tojo was tried by the International Military Tribunal for War Crimes and found guilty of waging unprovoked wars of aggression in violation of international law and ordering, authorizing, and permitting inhumane treatment of prisoners of war. Hideki Tojo was sentenced to death and hanged by the neck until dead in 1948. Before his execution, he claimed in his defense that with respect to the atrocities committed by the Japanese military, he was simply following orders from Emperor Hirohito. One final lie that history proved false.